Hi everyone, welcome back. Today I am using my single eyeshadow collection in this big palette to create a small color story that I'm going to take with me for a couple of trips that I have coming up. So this is actually my first time kind of using this whole big collection of single shadows since depotting them from all of my eyeshadow palettes earlier this year. So if you missed that video, I'll link it down below and in the corner here. But essentially what I did was I took nearly every eyeshadow palette in my collection. I think I have 4 of them, maybe 5 of them that are still intact. But I took almost all of them and I broke them down, I took them apart, and I created a single shadow collection. Since then, I've been swatching and playing in this big palette that I'll show you in a second. But because I'm about to go on a trip, this is sort of my first attempt at actually creating like a little color story, or it might not even really be a color story here. It might just be mostly like utility, but it's my first time really trying to condense from the big palette into something small that I'm excited to take with me traveling. So I kind of have twofold goals here today. First of all, in that video where I depotted everything, I promised you all that I would come back and show you what this collection looked like after I reorganized the shadows in here. At the end of that video, they were still just sort of grouped by like the palette they originally came from, but I've done some reorganizing, so I'll show you that in a second. And then phase 2 of this video is to build this eyeshadow palette. So I will put a timestamp below if all you want to do is see building the eyeshadow palette out in this small 9-pan palette. This is just a small palette from Sydney Grace. I just have a towel over the top because it has a mirror, so it's super reflective. And then this big palette is from Adept Cosmetics, and I will go ahead now and just hop right into the little tour I've got going here. Let me actually I'm gonna turn a light on here so it's a little brighter. Just get slightly more light on there so you can really see the colors true to color. So I reorganized and I sort of split things up in a way that I think is going to work well for me right now. After a while, I might shift this around, but currently how I decided to organize this is mattes are on the top half, shimmers are on the bottom half, and then they're sort of loosely grouped by color story or like by tone or shade going across as rows like this. So I started with, warm browns, going like lightest to deepest. Then I have some cool toned browns, some grays, and then some pinks, mauves, purples into more pinks, burgundies, reds, orange, yellow, green. Same thing down here. So I started with all of my like warmer toned browns, neutrals. Then I have my cooler toned stuff right here in this row. And then I have sort of like the pinky peach, mauve, and then into purple and into that same like burgundy, orange, yellow, green is sort of this realm right here. And then blues and purples are in this realm here, except this one. This one's sort of a pink purple, so I didn't know where to put it. So it's a little out of place. But I just tried to sort of group by color a little bit here. It was way more challenging than I expected just because a lot of stuff falls sort of in between those lines. Like, for example, this like peachy color here, like, does this belong by like these terracotta and orange shades, or does this belong over here with these like pinks? I don't know. We'll see how I use it. So, this is by no means the end of me sort of rearranging in here, but it at least gives me some guidance, especially when I'm trying to think through what I want to do in these smaller palettes. Because I can think like, well, I really want a taupe, right? And then I can sort of go to the part of the palette that has taupes. So I just wanted to give you all that quick update because I promised it to you in that video. I basically just spread these all out on my counter and started grouping them by color family until I got to something like this. Alrighty, so shifting over into kind of second goal of this video, let's build this little mini color story. I don't expect this to be anything like groundbreaking, just so you know, and I'm not necessarily pulling from any particular inspiration. I'm really just trying to, pick some shadows that I'm really excited to wear on these 2 trips. And a couple things to note. Number 1, on both trips, I'm wanting to sort of have a more like romantic, feminine sort of look. So I'm not really expecting to like dip into these blues and greens, just because for me personally, those aren't the colors that make me feel most like, you know, feminine and romantic. Those are really two good words for describing these, like the feeling I'm trying to get here. I'm probably going to be in like the mauves, maybe some warmer tones, some pinks, things like that, berry tones, things along those lines. So part of my inspiration, although I don't have a palette for inspiration, part of my inspiration is I have this dress, which is going to be, I can't show you the whole thing on camera, but I can show you the color of the fabric. So I have this dress that I know I'm going to be wearing, I think on both of the trips probably. So because I know I'm going to be wearing this, I'm going to at least be trying to pick some eyeshadows that at least, you know, I know complement this color of dress really, really nicely. I love with a color like this that, you know, kind of looks native to my skin. It looks really natural on me. I enjoy kind of pairing my makeup with this in a way, at least to kind of mirror the color or complement the color. So I will be keeping this dress in mind. And then because I have that dress, I am also planning to bring this blush from Ofra. This is from the Ofra and Samantha March collab. I think it's called 6. Yeah, the blush is called 6. So I think I want to bring this. It's almost the exact color of the dress, and it's also just really beautiful. It's shiny enough that because I'm going on a trip, I won't have to bring a highlighter as well. You know, it has enough of a sheen and a reflection. So I think this is probably coming with me. And because of that, I'm going to go ahead and put it into this Sydney Grace eyeshadow palette right now. If we end up not having room in here, I will take it out and I'll figure something else out for my blush. It won't be a big deal, but I would love to bring it. And because it's magnetic, I'm just going to throw it in there and see if we can work around that being in this same magnetic palette, just for condensing sake. Last thing, I will be filming kind of putting together Shop My Stash for the rest of the makeup for this trip in next week's video. So I'm going to do it right now in real time, you know, like I'm about to film it right after I film this eyeshadow palette. But that video will be going up. So just, you know, keep your eyes peeled if you like this kind of content, if you like hearing me kind of talk through what I'm bringing with me and why. The rest of my makeup will be in a separate video. So that being said, let's hop in. There's a couple things I know I want to grab out of here just because they're like tried and trues for me. The first being this shade Shell. Yeah, I can pick it out of a lineup like so easily. I just love this eyeshadow. It's such a perfect mid-tone color on me. I feel that it shears out really, really nicely, so I can get a really light wash of color, but it also builds up to this depth. And on a lighter makeup day, having just this sort of in my outer corners and a shimmer on my lid is one of my favorite looks. It's just a really flattering color on my skin tone. I mean, shouldn't be surprised. So far, we've got a bit of a color story going here. But I almost always want that shadow with me in some capacity. That being said, it only builds up to a certain amount of depth, right? And so I know that I need a couple darker mattes as well, just because I might want some more like nighttime romantic vibes some of these days on these trips. So I'm thinking either a dark brown or maybe like this berry shade. So I think I'm going to pull them both for right now and we'll see what we're working with for space. And I am in the mood to bring this like warm chocolatey brown. This is from Sydney Grace. It's the shade Dark Chocolate. So I'm going to pull that one and I'm going to pull this berry shade as well from the KKW Classic Blossom palette. Gosh, even just that with only mattes looks so beautiful to me right now. Really, really loving how this is sort of playing out already. Usually, I feel like I'd pick a mauve matte too, but I'm thinking I don't need one because this color is just so spot on for me. I mean, like, for example, my name is like being called by this guy here, but I don't know if it's a worthwhile addition just because I have a limited space here. The other thing is that because it's winter, I probably won't be packing a face powder. And oftentimes I use a face powder to kind of like blur the edges of a matte, just make everything a little softer, more romantic looking. And because I won't have like a my skin toned color matte through a face powder, I think I need to pick one of these like very light colors too. I love both of these shades. They're both from the KKW Beauty Classic Blossom palette. They do show up a little bit darker on the eyes than they do in the pans, but I still think that this pink one is light enough to kind of serve the purposes I'm hoping. So, oh, but it's a little peachy. Let me think about this. Yeah, you know what? I don't know. I'm gonna put both of these actually just like over to the side for right now. One of those two will probably come with me, but I don't know which. We might have to wait and see what the shimmers look like. If they start to lean more like peachy pink, I'll pick this one. If not, I'll pick this more neutral, lighter toned shade. And I think that's all I need for mattes. I really love matte eyeshadow. In fact, a lot of times I do like an all matte look for my eyeshadow. So it's probably going to be a little more matte heavy here in this palette. But I do want to pick a couple shimmers, and one is standing out to me in particular, and it's this one right here. This is from the ColourPop Lust for Dusk palette, and it's called Shaken. And it is just like the most shiny, reflective, beautiful thing ever. And it's like the perfect color for what I'm going for here. Don't worry, I'll make this look a little nicer at the end and line them up beautifully. And then I'll also swatch at the end too. But this shadow just really needs to come with me. I just really adore it. And then I know this is a little off base and maybe I won't end up sticking with it, but this eyeshadow here from Pat McGrath, it's from the Celestial Odyssey, I can't even remember, palette, and it's called Palladium. Something about it is just like calling my name. And it would be a really beautiful, like, one and done all over the lid. Wouldn't even have to use a matte, I don't think. So I think I'm going to put this in as just sort of like a bit of a wild card. It's definitely more cool toned than everything else I'm working with here. Everything so far is sort of like warm, pinky, brown sort of tones. But I do think it would be really gorgeous just for like on its own, a standalone option. And there, that kind of gives you that distinction, right? It just looks, it looks like it doesn't fit, and that's because it doesn't. That's why I said I'm not really going for a color story here. I'm more so going for like a couple of looks that I know I might want to do. Typically in a palette like this, what I would have brought before I depotted all of these, I normally would have picked this right here, which is ColourPop Da Coco from the Going Coconuts palette. Similar concept. It's sort of that like taupe mid-tone color where it's not too dark, or it's not too dark. It blends out really beautifully on the edges, so it's really good for a single shadow look. And it, you know, it sort of just like rides that line between warm and cool tones, so it really just goes with everything. I love this eyeshadow. It's probably my most used eyeshadow, honestly, in my whole collection. But I want to give it a little break. I want to test out this Pat McGrath one. I've never used it on my eyes. I've just swatched it a whole bunch, and it seems like it's going to perform a similar function. Worth a test. I think it's worth a test for sure. So I've got that kind of standalone, little bit of a wild card option. I've got a really sparkly pink that I think would look beautiful with any of these matte shades that I'm considering including those two. But I think I need like one warm brown, or, you know, just something a little more on the neutral side of things. And then I think I need like one sparkly topper, which I already know what I want. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick that one out. I want this one here. This is from the Ethereal palette from Profusion, and it's the shade Awaken. And it looks a little like bluish in the pan, or at least I think it does when I'm looking at it from here. But it comes out as just like a really shimmery, sparkly gold top coat. So you'll see that when I swatch everything out. But I think that's my good shimmer top coat. It's also good like brighten up the inner corner if I need to, something like that. And then I want to pick one of these like warm tone mattes. And again, there's one that I almost always usually would have picked, which is this one right here. It is the shade Rust from the Alter Ego Canyons palette. This is like one of my all-time favorite warm browns, but I think I want something a little less dark, so something more on this end of the spectrum. And I just want to, again, give that one a rest. That one and this ColourPop one, I really lean on heavily, but now that all these are separated out, I kind of want to pick something different. So I'm just going to swatch a couple of these and see what's really calling my name, and thinking about these mattes, like what might be a good fit. I don't know. Those are actually all feeling a little more coppery than I was hoping. Even this one, which doesn't look that copper in the pan, right? I mean, I wouldn't have guessed that that becomes that on my eyes. Maybe I'm not feeling this. Maybe instead of that, I could just do like a light shimmer shade, and maybe even not bring this like topper instead. Yeah, maybe that's the way to go, because what I'm really actually wanting is like something like this. Okay, I'm gonna do that. So I'm gonna actually take out this shade, this topper shade. Let me swatch it for you though, just really quick, because I promised I would, and it's really beautiful. So you can see it's like a gold, a shimmery gold topper. I think I'm gonna take, gosh, no, I just can't get rid of that. Okay, I'm gonna bring this, and I'm not gonna bring a warm brown. I'm just not gonna do it. I think this one from Pat McGrath could be good enough if I'm wanting like a brown shade all over my lids. So, okay, we're good. I got off track there for a minute. I've got to focus on what I really want to bring here. Okay, so just sort of given these colors, I'm gonna try to squeeze in this lighter toned pink from the KKW Beauty palette. I just think it's gonna have a little more utility for me. It'll allow me to do something really, really light if I want to, with like this in the crease and this on the lids. So I can go super, super minimal if I want to there. So I think this is what I'm working with. It looks so boring and so monochromatic to me, but I think there's some interest here. I think there's some excitement. So let me rearrange here. I'm actually gonna go ahead and close this one, get it out of frame, and then we're gonna work just with this guy, and I'm gonna just kind of rearrange here a bit. And once it is organized, then I will swatch for you. Okay, so here we go. This is the best I've sort of got for organization. I am gonna swatch, like, not in this order necessarily, but I'm gonna swatch the blush as well, just because it's in here. And theoretically, I could use this as an eyeshadow. I probably won't, but I'm gonna swatch that one first so you can see it next to the others here. And that's what I mean when I say it has such a beautiful sheen. Isn't that gorgeous? Okay, and then I'm gonna go ahead and swatch lightest to darkest mattes and shimmers. So I'll just go through these here. Alrighty, so there it is. There's the color story, or maybe a lack of color story is a better way to say it, because it's not exactly a color story per se. I wasn't trying to make a color story. I was just trying to get some products together that I thought would be really useful for this sort of like romantic vibes for some travel. So I hope you enjoyed this. If you did and you want to see what else I'm packing makeup wise to kind of complement this color story, please subscribe to my channel. That video will be going up next week. So super, super excited to show you all what that looks like as well, kind of along with this beautiful, beautiful color story I've got going on here, and these tones and that dress I picked out for our trips as well. So I hope you enjoyed today, and I will see you next time.